President Trump in Brussels this morning on the fourth stop of his first overseas trip as commander-in-chief. Many are hailing the president's 9-day trip as historic. But has the mainstream media already missed a major milestone? Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich writes in a new op-ed in the Washington Post, quote, "Never before has an American president tried so clearly to unite the civilized world, including the nations of the Middle East and Africa, against the forces of terrorism. Never before has an American president issued so direct a challenge to those nations to do more in the fight. Journalists and Washington bureaucrats may see Trump's call to action as a distracting sideshow from a status quo that they cannot imagine changing. And yet this week, it already has." Joining us right now, the man himself, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, Newt Gingrich. He is also the author of the new book, Understanding Trump. Mr. Speaker, always a pleasure.
Great to be with you.
Good to see you.
Well,
Let's talk.
I'm amazed watching how much news you just delivered.
Yeah, there's a lot happening this morning, isn't there?
There is.
But, I mean, in the op-ed that you write, it's almost as if the mainstream media is covering a completely different world.
Yeah, they're completely out to lunch.
Yeah.
You have two alternative realities. You have the gossipy, backbiting, nasty Washington news media, and you have history. Trump will have met with 85 leaders by the end of this tour. He had 58 leaders of the Sunni world in Riyadh. I mean, extraordinary gathering. He gave a speech in Riyadh comparable to Reagan's speech at Westminster in 1982. It is truly historic. It's 42 minutes long. I mean, people should look. Here's a president of the United States laying out for 58 leaders from across the Arab world and North Africa. Here's what we have to do as partners to defeat evil. Then he goes from there to Jerusalem, meets with both Abbas and Netanyahu. Then he goes to meet with the Pope and the Italian Prime Minister and President. Now he's in NATO and the European Common Market. And now, next he's going to go down to Sicily, to the G7. So for a first trip, remember, the last two presidents went, I think one went to Mexico and one went to Canada. That was their first trip.
Right.
Okay. This president said, no, let's try to be historic. Let's try to do the real thing. And I think it was, everything I've heard, for example, in the Vatican, is that he was remarkably well received.
So what has been the impact, and why is that important that he chose Saudi Arabia first and then Israel? I mean, it's pretty extraordinary that never before have you seen the flight with the leader, the commander-in-chief, from Saudi Arabia to Israel.
First of all, what people tend to forget is he has surrounded himself with world-class people. The Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, was the head of ExxonMobil, the largest investor in Saudi Arabia, has had 30-some years' experience in Saudi Arabia. General Mattis, the Secretary of Defense, has huge experience in the region. General McMaster had tremendous experience in the region. And why does that matter? Because they're talking to people they've known for years. And they said basically to the Saudis, look, if you'll put this together, you're going to be the first place we visit. And they put two big things together. One was they helped get 58 leaders in one room. And that room was an amazing picture. And in Riyadh, for example, in the main English language newspaper, 80% of the front page is the picture of all of these leaders with Trump. Second,
and they really showed him respect in Saudi Arabia.
Enormous respect.
A lot more respect than he gets here at home by the media.
The king spent 2.5 days at his side. Now, the signal that sends in their world, you know, when the king who would not even go to the airport to see Obama, but when the king literally is at his side for 2.5 days, the signal that sends of acceptability and of support is astonishing. Second, I think they signed $450 billion in both commercial and defense contracts. Easily 275,000 American jobs. So Trump was, I think, achieving both a domestic goal, more jobs, his a big foreign policy goal. And then I talked to him the other night when he was in Rome, and he made very clear that we were just chatting, but he said, you know, he really had the sense in Jerusalem that there's a deal to be made. Now, again, this is a guy whose book is The Art of the Deal. He loves making deals. He loves being positive. But he had a real sense that the ground was beginning to change some, and that there were some steps that could be taken in a very positive way. We'll see. I mean, lots of people have had that hope and not had it come up. He's also the first American president to go to the Western Wall and to be there and to pray. I mean, it's in every single step, he has done things that are pretty unique. You know, General McMaster talked about how they hope they're going to work out with the Catholic Church a whole series of cooperative American activities on humanitarian issues, human trafficking and other things. And I think you'll see NATO today is going to actually come towards Trump. Now, ironically, I watched a reporter this morning, again, drives me crazy, who's saying, well, Trump's going to have to walk back some of his campaign rhetoric. Baloney. Trump said they ought to spend more money. They're going to announce today they're going to spend more money. Trump said they need to get a new mission. They're going to announce today that they're going to join in the coalition against ISIS.
Once again, he pointed to the issue, and now we see that actually it was absolutely the right issue.
They're coming his direction, and we're told somehow that it's Trump who has to change.
Right. Okay, so it's a very successful trip internationally. We know that.